All right. Welcome to the slideshow. Just to start off, talk about how you doing, Ben? How you been, man, during this lockdown quarantine?
Man, so I've been doing pretty good. I got to play together with a group of friends recently. We stayed socially distanced and didn't play the trombone as much as I liked in it, but it was a chance to get to have some music with buddies. So that was fun. Recently, up here where I'm at, we've had a lot of rain, and so I haven't really been working a ton like I normally would. I've been mowing grass on the side because that's what teachers do, I guess. And all this time inside has really given me an opportunity to listen to a lot more music and also start to play again some. So I feel like I've been doing pretty well.
Good to hear, man. Yeah, I've been doing a lot of the typical stuff. I did actually get to play with someone. I played with my good friend Jake Noble, who plays bass. It's just the two of us. But we've done a lot of stuff together, and so I always love getting to play with that guy. And just in general, getting to play with someone else was amazing. It was kind of like a bittersweet moment. It's great to like play with someone and see how great that feels again. And then also it was like, man, this is what I'm missing as I've been playing alone for so long. But other than that, man, I guess just trombone stuff. I've been working on the house, as I'm sure a lot of people are doing right now. I painted the bathroom, and but I got a new trombone stand, a K&M stand, which was recommended to me by Ben, and I gotta say it's working pretty good. I did go ahead and put the crown bag over the top, and I guess that's its own conversation. But if you want to know, I do that on all my M-Bell stands, so I recommend it. If you have an M-Bell stand, get yourself a crown bag. And hopefully in the best way to get a crown bag, which is by buying some crown and pop her on there. But
Topping my K&M stand, oh, sorry.
oh, keep going, man.
Topping my K&M stand is a sock that has a grizzly bear on it. So
Nice.
doesn't always have to be a crown.
I guess that says something about me. I do like the grizzly bear. That's very cool. I actually in in the process of deciding whether or not to put the crown back on it, I found a whole thread on Trombone Chat about stand socks, and so socks work too. Socks or crown bags or whatever. Leave in the comments your preferred method of covering up the top of your stand, or if you just don't do it. So there you go. What do you got for us, Ben, for current events?
So last week we had some good news with Ron Wilkins getting out of the ICU. This week we do not have trombone showing up in good news. In fact, it's definitely the opposite. The Austin Symphony Orchestra dismissed Brenda Sansig Salas as its principal trombone player because she got on social media and made some racist remarks dealing with the riots that are going on right now in the United States. People definitely have different opinions as to what's going on right now, but I would suggest to anyone who is thinking seriously about trying to get any job, be it orchestra or just working in general, police your social media. This person lost a job that people would fight for and would give a lot of things for just because she opened her mouth on social media, which that's a shame that somebody representing the trombone community had to be the one to do that.
Yeah, I'm sure it's a lot more than just the trombone community at the moment, but yeah, anything you post on social media, just be conscious of, make sure you stand by your opinion and that you're okay with it being out there in the world in relation to employers and whatnot. So our episode this time is going to be about playing trombone during the coronavirus, during quarantine, lockdown, whatever you're calling it, like this state of your life right now, the state of the world, which is obviously very crazy. And I thought a lot about the topic, and I'm going to give you a lot of resources, and I'm going to give you a lot of things to check out and ideas that I have. But after a lot of thought, one thing I definitely came to is that I want everyone. I don't want to come off as you have to practice right now, or what are you doing? Because I'm seeing that a lot on social media. Like if you're not practicing right now, you're wasting this time. And I think that what's a lot more important than that is just your own sanity. So take care of yourself. And if that means practice, like it does for me, I personally like when I play trombone, it's like a good way to get away. But great. But if trombone seems like work right now and you're already stressed, just take care of yourself. And that's my number one piece of advice. And so I thought, rather than come off like we know everything, because just like the rest of you, we're trying to figure out this as we go along. I mean, I think no one has all the answers right now to a lot of things. I'm just gonna tell you about my own personal experience, and Ben's gonna tell you about his personal experience, and hopefully that gives you something to grab onto that you can use and grab from that, or just find it entertaining. But I guess I'll let Ben start. Tell me about the coronavirus, man. How has it affected you? Has it any type of shifts you made, and just like your initial impact from it?
So when all this started, we had our band's concert assessment. So as I said in the previous episode, I am a band director over here at Mammoth Spring, Arkansas, and we had concert assessment. Well, while we were at concert assessment, places were just starting to get impacted, and I believe Arkansas had at the time 6 positive cases. Well, I had kids in the band saying, "Hey, what's going on with this?" They were asking all sorts of questions about it, asking if we'd get out of school, uh, as they normally would. Well, we still went to concert assessment, but probably about 2 bands after we had played, where we were watching, we actually had to leave the audience because they decided to limit audience members due to the coronavirus scare. And then the following weekend, we were let out of school completely. So, with very little notice, teachers had to become online teachers pretty quick. So, that was an interesting start. When it first happened, we didn't have a lot of resources. I was stuck to using Google Classroom and a program called Google Voice. We had a lot of busy work at the very beginning. So, that made things tough. But as we went on, stuff started opening up a bit, and our resources started opening up, and teaching got a lot easier. But it still really affected our band in general, and I mean, it's still affecting us to this day. One thing, a big negative impact we had was I was unable to try out sixth grade band, our prospective sixth grade band members next year. I'll talk a little bit later about some resources that are coming regarding that. But for right now, we're going to have to go into the fall school year with kids just trying out their instruments. I'm sure if anybody listening to this has been in beginning band or remembers trying out for beginning band, it's a sanitation nightmare. So that was probably one of the biggest impacts I have, and will probably be a lasting impact all the way to when these kids are seniors. Uh, Having a good start definitely makes a difference in your bands. So that was something I noticed. It took a lot of us off, like I said, caught a lot of us off guard. People weren't allowed in the building to get their instruments. We had a lot of issues from the beginning, but I think overall, my kids stepped up to the plate. It took about a week of them being off school before they decided that they were going to want to play their instruments. I think they were all excited, thinking it's just an extended summer break, and then they realized, oh man, this is going to last for a while, and they actually started playing because they missed it, which that made me feel good. Playing wise for me, I've managed to play my trombone a little bit more than I normally could as a band director. A lot of times I would run out of time. So I've played my trombone a little bit more than I normally would, but I've also been able to flip through some of my old music that I've played through, and I've tried organizing my music library a bit. And I will say that it's been nice to kind of hit a reset button on one way. Of course, and got to spend time with family. But Cody, how did it impact you initially, at least?
Yeah, so I mean, first of all, man, I'm really glad. in terms of experience and in terms of whatever resources you're going to do, I'm really glad that we're able to get your experience as a teacher, because I know that's crazy. And like I'll be able to give, being a player and being a student, because that was the biggest thing. I mean, when it first started happening, when the first cases started getting big in America, I was finishing up I just finished my graduate degree, so I was at University of New Orleans. And it's crazy, man. I was on a phone call with my good buddy Patrick Chan, who me and Vince both went to school with. He plays drums, and he's currently going to SUNY Purchase up in New York and living up there, right outside of the city. And so I was having a conversation with him, and he was telling me like, yeah, man, like it's schools are shutting down, everything's closing up. We're going to be going online, and this seems comical now. My initial thought was just, that's crazy, but I thought, it's hot here in New Orleans. The flu is less pertinent. Like that, if that even happens here, that's going to take so long. Like that's not going to happen to us. And then, man, no joke, an hour later, I went into a class I was in, and the teacher was like, "Yeah, man, a couple days we're gonna be doing a drill to see, like a coronavirus drill to see how we would do online learning." And I and I was like, "Man, I can't believe this. I just told someone we weren't even gonna do it." And so I honestly, even at that point, and once again, not to seem insensitive or whatever. I just didn't understand the scope of what was happening. I just thought like this is ridiculous. And by the time we got to the drill, which I think was like 2 days later, they were like, "Yeah, at the end of the week, we're done being on campus. Everyone's going." And so it was crazy. And I'll say like I'll say that like a lot of people, I know a lot of people are suing universities and stuff right now. And so I'll just go out and say that like, yeah, like a lot of stuff teaching wise changed a lot, like, and kind of for the worst. And it's not anybody's fault. I mean, no professor was ready to start teaching online. They definitely weren't expecting that at the beginning of the semester. And music school in particular is just a really hard thing to do online. I'm so thankful, particularly to two of my professors, Brian Seeger and Matt Wright, who plays trombone here in the orchestra, who put a lot of effort into making me have a learning experience, which was great, because I was able to still continue combo, which seemed like the last thing I'd be able to keep doing. And I did my graduate colloquium, which meant that I had to do 3 different papers. And in some weird way, it gave me a lot of extra time to do those. And I'm not gonna lie, I was procrastinating a little bit, and I definitely was able to use the extra time. And a huge negative, like I had 2 gigs coming up at Jazz Fest, and both of those were obviously scrapped. I mean, Jazz Fest didn't happen. I had a lot of gigs that got canceled, and it was weird to see band leaders' reactions. Like, some band leaders were like, obviously everything's cleared up, schedule's gone. So like, I'll get back to you when gigs happen. Other band leaders had a lot of hope. I had band leaders who were telling me like, May 1st, we're gonna be back. We're gonna have gigs. And I was like, nah, man, there's no way. And there isn't. I don't know if you're aware, New Orleans as a whole is still much more shut down than a lot of places, and the French Quarter especially is completely shut down. You can't drive down there, let alone go into a club. Um, and it's a scary time, and I don't know what clubs with 20% capacity are going to be able to yield as far as payout, and I don't even know if they're going to have music. So the whole scene thing is very scary. Um, and I think the best advice is just to be as adaptable as possible. Just try and make light of whatever situation. And I don't know if make light's even the right word. Just try and do well with what you got and keep going and see if you can find positives. Which for me has just been practicing a lot. Um, and this is kind of phasing into like the next part of what we're going to talk about. But one of the big things for me was that I was able to play in a combo and then record stuff with people that I never even met. The drummer I recorded about 4 tracks with, I've never met. He's just a guy in town. he's a great drummer, but I just, there's a lot of drummers here. So I've never met the guy, but like, yeah, we work together on a project now, and that's crazy to think about, and this was people I was going to school with, and then we needed to find a drummer who was able to record. There's a lot more technical aspects of recording the drums that would become, problematic. But yeah, I mean, so within a month, I basically learned how to use Pro Tools, which, if you're not aware, is a software that people use in the studio a lot to record stuff and then mix and edit. And I was really fortunate that I've tried recording some stuff at home before, so I've in the past just used Audacity, but I do have a microphone, like a condenser microphone, and I do have like a little interface, and maybe not the greatest setup in the world, but pretty decent, really good considering I wasn't expecting this to happen. There's a lot of software out there though for recording and mixing where you could record yourself and then send it to someone else, because that's essentially what we did. The teacher created a track and laid out each part of it, and then we went through and recorded bass, recorded guitar, then we recorded the horns, which was me and a saxophone player, put the vocals on there, and then after that put in a drummer. I will say before that we used a just like a drummer clip, like a virtual drummer, which there's a lot of that out there, and I'll throw some of those out there. Ben, what's the other software besides Pro Tools that people use a lot?
So for a lot of Apple users, it may be something that is a little bit more user friendly, and maybe some of our listeners might have. There's something called GarageBand. iPhones make up a large percentage of mobile devices, and with a little bit of equipment, they make plenty of microphones for iPhones. You could actually record and layer tracks on GarageBand. So that's one. Free software for computers, or for PC at least, would be Audacity. Audacity's very popular. I will say it's a little bit more involved than GarageBand. It's pretty raw too, so it takes a lot of monkeying around with it to figure it out. But people will find things like that pretty easy. Like I said, specifically GarageBand for the iPhone users. I'm not an iPhone user, but I do have some buddies who have had some success with something like that, and so it might be easily accessible.
Yeah, I'll also say that so there's another software that's like a lot of people use besides Pro Tools that's like in that same realm of recording on higher up, like the studio engineers use. I can't think of it at the moment, but
Logic.
Yeah, Logic. That's exactly what I was looking for. Yeah, Logic's another one.
That's completely Apple as well.
Okay, I didn't know
I will
that.
say.
Yeah, I'll even say that Pro Tools is more adept for Apple users, but I don't have an Apple, and I used it. It may take a little bit of slight working around, but you can use Pro Tools and all that Avid Link stuff without it. And I will say that like both Logic and Pro Tool are like the upper end kind of stuff. So while they're a lot cheaper for students, so if you're a student, I suggest checking it out. You know, I wouldn't, before I got into that, I would check out something like Audacity, which is free and would get you started. But if you're looking for something higher up, you can use that. But you can definitely use Audacity, and you could definitely send Audacity files across platforms. But I've been thinking a lot about this, like trying to collaborate with people online and thinking about what I've saw. I mean, I'm in a trombone choir right now, and the leader of it's like a community trombone choir, and the leader's trying to get us all to play together. And there's some older people in the group who probably aren't so technologically adept. And he's trying to figure out ways we could do it. And he asked me if we could like use Zoom and all play together. And like, no, there's no way. And I don't want to be discouraging. The thing is that like the internet has a natural delay. So a lot of people have been trying to find a way around that. One of the ones I've been looking at, you can look at, I think there's a couple different people trying to achieve this, especially now with everything going on. but there's it's called Jam Kazam, and I think that I haven't used it myself. I know some people who are. They're still getting a little bit of a delay. Um, I think your internet speed and then how close you are to people is like a big factor. I do think it's free right now, which so if you're thinking about it, you could try it out. But yeah, trying to play with other people other than layering tracks, and there's apps out there. I've been seeing a lot of people use this acapella thing where they'll play their part and send it to someone else. Um, but yeah, I mean, obviously playing together with people is a really tricky thing right now. That's a big hot button issue. And I don't think the internet has all the answers. I mean, I even think that, if anything, like the internet has, it's like quite behind where it could be. I mean, people weren't expecting this, but I think we could be a little further along and we're not. So, um, which, I'll say, like, if you're doing lessons right now, I know personally, one of the things I've been doing, which this is my teacher's suggestion, is just recording all of my stuff beforehand, sending it to them, and then talking about it in the actual Zoom meeting. That way you're not trying to fight sounds and whatnot. So, do the best you can. You may not even have access to that kind of internet. Which is one of the things with Pro Tools that I was kind of a fan of, was because one of the people in our group was kind of in like a rural area. He went home and his internet was terrible. But he was able to record his bass through through his computer built-in speaker, which wasn't great. And then, after, I'm not gonna lie, quite a bit of editing, we were able to throw together a product that sounded really good. So I think there's a lot of situations that you can make it work, but also, maybe not. And I'm going to try and give you a lot of resources, but this is just, a difficult time for everybody. That's just kind of what I've found. I mean, what have you got been as far as, playing with people in a group? Have you been able to find anything that has been effective, or, what issues have you found?
Okay, so as a band director, I will be talking about this from a band director perspective a lot. Um, so trying to play with students, like trying to have students play together, I have all but abandoned. Only reason that is because I do live in a rural area where people have uh, differing internet speeds, things like that. But also, some people don't even have access to computers here. So what I really try to focus on is individual players getting to feel like they are playing with a band. That's where a program that some people might know called Smart Music has come in handy. While Smart Music does require internet and a computer, one of the plus sides of that is that during this COVID-19 crisis, it was made free to all schools. Uh, I believe it's still free till June 30th as well. And anyways, what a student can do is put on a pair of headphones, and then whenever they are playing, they can play in the middle of a song. They will hear the accompaniment, or they will hear the entire band playing around them, and they can play their part with the band, and then they can go back, isolate where they possibly messed up. Either they were a little bit early, timing was off, or they were out of tune some. Very, very important for trombone players. So it will actually come back and record what you played. You can just play your track, what you played, and it'll actually tell you what you did wrong. It's not perfect. I mean, any robot grading playing is not going to be perfect, but it was a great way for students to be able to self-evaluate, especially younger students, junior high and high school age. And I feel like whenever I get back, I know I had a tuba player and a trombone player who I know have been using this a ton. I've actually used it for a choir that I teach as well, so that's done well. And there's a lot of great ideas out there. Just I haven't implemented some of them. Like one that we were considering was doing something close to a virtual choir. Uh, if anybody's seen the Eric Whitaker videos, virtual choir. Those have been around for at least 10 years now. And what Eric Whitaker did was record a video of himself conducting one of his pieces of music. And then people submitted videos of them singing along to his conducting video. And then he compiled them all together and put together a pretty great sounding ensemble. So it's definitely possible to get together in groups and do things like this virtually. I do think that playing together simultaneously will definitely take a backseat for quite some time now, though.
Yeah, man. I have some stuff I want to throw in as far as kind of playing with tracks that I've kind of found that might be useful. But real fast to back up, one of the things that I had to do during my quarantine or whatever to complete my degree was to do a graduate recital, which initially just trying to talk to a lot of my professors about what would be acceptable, because I did want to finish my degree. So what I ended up doing was I presented a number of like projects that I'd worked on throughout my time there, and then some stuff I'd worked on while I was in the city and going to school, but not at school, and just presented each track. And I did some originals and some of my friends' originals, and then some standards. And I used a software called OBS, which if you're Facebook live streaming or if you're using Instagram Live or something like that, will allow you to basically present within the OBS and then feed it to the Facebook Live. So I was able to be live talking about something and then click next and then show a video and then click next and come back to me, which is kind of a big deal. I mean, it's a really big deal in terms of if you're trying to just stream something live, it's really hard to determine what the quality of that's going to be, and streaming out a video just enhances that a lot. So, just another tool you could use. As far as
man, that I was just going to say, man, that recital was something I had never seen before, and I don't know. I think it's great that universities are still trying to make things happen for their students. Yeah, I don't think it diminishes your achievement in any way. In fact, I think it kind of adds a unique story that you can add to your history of playing the trombone. I think every recital is going to have kinks in it. I don't think anybody would expect, though, a pandemic to make it have to be all online. So that was a neat change, man. It was enjoyable for sure.
Yeah, man. I mean, thanks for tuning in as well. I got a lot of people to tune in, which I was happy about. But it was good, it was good to get something out. It was good to share music with people again, because I haven't really performed anywhere. But it definitely wasn't what I was expecting, obviously. But that's just part of it. And as Ben said, I'll definitely have a story. I'll definitely be able to tell my grandchildren, that kind of thing. So I just wanted to talk about, I'm just trying to transition here into like some tools I found, some stuff that I use personally, that, apps and whatnot that'll help you kind of simulate working with someone or working with something besides just yourself or a metronome. And one of the things I was going to throw in kind of with Ben's smart music, and this isn't quite as adept, like smart music's listening to you and giving you feedback, but if you're not aware, all of the military band's performances are public domain or they're given out for free because they're supported by taxpayer money. So the Army Blues did a recording a couple years ago, which is called, let me look this up here real fast, Something Old, Something New. And one of the cool things about this recording is if you go find this is still, I would just Google Army Blues, Something Old, Something New. So it should pop up. But if you find this recording, they've got it set up to where all of the sheet music is available, and then all of the recordings are available with like a -1. So you can pull up the lead trombone part and then listen to the recording without the lead trombone. So you're playing the lead trombone. And It's available for all the instruments. I mean the band is super killing. I can't say exactly for sure who's on it. I'm pretty sure it was Jeff Cortazzo on bass, Matt Neese on lead, or possibly Harry Waters on lead, or possibly Harry playing second, for sure. So those three guys I think were in there, and then another trombone player. Um, but yeah, man, just a super slamming band and just a super cool resource. If you live in Germany, I know this is a super small group. I think they're trying to make this available in the U.S. It's the only reason I bring it up. Is WDR Big Band Cologne just did something super similar where they recorded an album and did like you can select and pull up the sheet music with a -1, so minus whatever your part is that you're playing, or you can just play it the whole thing and do it that way. Unfortunately, not available yet in the U.S. WDR, I think, is like a national news service, so I think the big band's supported by the government, so that makes it a little trickier as far as getting it out globally. But I know that's something they're trying to do. There's Americans in that band, expats who live over there. I think like Adam Nussbaum maybe plays in there. Mattis Cedarberg, the bass trombone player in there, is really amazing.
Yes.
And in fact, if I'll just go ahead and say, just to get off a little bit, if you're not hip to WDR Big Band Cologne, check out their stuff. Definitely check out the album they did with Marshall Gilkis. There's a 2 with him, and they are incredible. The band is super good. Marshall's insane. It's I couldn't recommend them more. They've got a great one, Maceo Parker. It's just a super good band. But yeah, I think they're trying to make that global. So that's out there right now. So, those are 2 things where you can find a group playing and then play with them. I don't know how available that is with classical music. As Ben just pointed out, there's smart music, which is like concertos, and then they have band music as well. So there's that. But that's what I've got as far as like a playing +1, and then I have some other tools. Unless you have anything, Ben, as far as playing along with a bunch of people at the same time. I'm going to go into these tools. Do you have anything else, man?
Okay, so if you let's say you don't have the best internet, I highly suggest looking into Music Minus One. They have all sorts of Music Minus One collections for different artists and things like that for different instruments. Just one that comes to mind that I actually had sitting around that was worth pulling out was a George Roberts Music Minus One that I had laying around. I actually purchased it mostly because it had recordings of George Roberts that I didn't have and I couldn't find anywhere else. But it's still a pretty neat deal. It's a nice concept, and for those of you who might not have great internet, just Googling Music Minus One trombone, you could find some collections of different music. And like I said, George Roberts one was definitely worth it. Was worth the money just to get the recordings of George that I hadn't heard before. So.
All right, cool, man. Well, we're going to take a short break here, and then we're going to come back with some tools and some other resources. All right, welcome back to the slideshow. So we were talking about different things we could use on the internet, and I just want to talk about some tools that I use personally that, if you didn't know about, I think are okay at simulating playing with people, or at least will add an element that could help you out in your practice that you may be missing. And the first one is an old one. You probably are familiar with this. If you're not, great. This is a great source. Is iReal Pro. I was just talking to Ben about how I got it so long ago that it had a different name. So so I've been using it for a long time. But it's basically you go on there and there's a forum. The most popular one is called like Jazz Standards 1300, and it's just a ridiculous amount of jazz standards. If there's not one on there that you're playing, you can probably find it on a forum. And what you do is you open up the file and it shows you the chord changes, kind of like a lead sheet or like a chart sheet, and then it just plays through them with a rhythm section so that you can play with a backing track for whatever you're doing. In that same note, if you just want to dial it down to just the drummer, I just kind of recently started using Drum Genius, which is free for 3 or 5 different drum styles. There's a ridiculous amount on there. I think I paid $9 to get all of them. But you can pay for them individually. I think they're super cheap if you want to do that. If you just want to go ahead and pay for all of them, you can do that. It sounds super realistic. And one of the things I like a lot is that it has like the style and then a suggested tempo where it feels best at. And then a lot of them have like a reference recording. So it'll say like Jeff Tain Watts on Cherokee on Wynton Marsalis's album Standard Time, Volume 1. But you can still move the tempos around. They feel great. They do sound super realistic. I did find out that it was actually a guy just plugging them into his computer. They were not actual drums recorded, which is crazy because they sound really good. But it's just a nice little drum loop. So if you just want to practice that, I know I use that for time sometimes. You know, maybe if you're getting tired of your metronome, it could be a fun way to mix it up with a really varying amount of styles, everything from funk and gospel to swing. And
I'd be curious to hear a Rochu with a funk beat behind it. But on that note, Cody, I think it's worth saying, especially with iReal Pro and Drum Genius, Cody said $9, and that might sound expensive, especially whenever we're talking about apps that we're normally used to paying 99 cents for the good ones or the expensive ones, and then just getting everything else free. I think it's important to mention that there are app developers out here who put these together, and these apps are definitely worth the money for what you get out of them. I just didn't want to gloss over that because it is important that people are actually paying for these. And guys, you are contributing to the music industry, and you are helping push things further when you pay for content that you like. And I will tell you, iReal Pro is worth every penny from personal experience. I haven't used Drum Genius as much, but I imagine if Cody's using it as a practice tool half as much as he uses iReal Pro, it is worth it as well.
Yeah, and I'll also say it's another thing with Drum Genius. It can be especially helpful in terms of creating backing tracks and playing over them, like making your own backing tracks. I mean, I was fortunate enough to work with the great guitarist Steve Mazikowski. If you're not familiar with him, definitely check him out. He was the guitarist in Astral Project. But Steve, in the 80s, when he was recording on Blue Note and stuff, he was making his own backing tracks for to practice with before he'd go play with guys in New York. And back then, I mean, it's we take for granted what we have now. I mean, like this guy would record what the guitar, the comping parts and whatever rhythm he could on his own in his house with like a reel-to-reel or something, and have all these. It's just crazy, all the different ways that he would work around recording, and have, layering tracks was not what it is now, for sure. Just as far as doing stuff at your house. So if you want a fake drummer, I recommend Drum Genius. There's other apps out there for that too, though. So just having a simulated drummer or some kind of something that's not just a metronome clicking. And like Ben said, it can be fun to play like a Rochu with like a funk backing track or something. And that way you're internalizing the time rather than maybe hearing just, over and over again. So that's nice. I was going to say that kind of transitioning here from a little bit away from tools. As far as Rochus, specifically, there's a lot of stuff on YouTube, and I don't think it's limited to Rochus. I just know for sure that Rochu has some great stuff that Toby Oft, who plays with Boston Symphony, has recorded, I think, the first 12 maybe, Rochus, and so they're just really great for hearing what it's supposed to sound like, what you're supposed to be getting out of it. I think at a lot of them at the beginning, he talks about them a little bit. And then if you want to try and play along with him, they're nice too. He's just a phenomenal player. Also, perhaps maybe, what's up, man?
I said I've listened to many Aroshu's with Toby.
Yeah. Yeah, Toby's a great, and I'll get into this in a minute, but Toby, I know, has put a bunch of stuff on YouTube. I know he did a lot of it live, so I'm not sure what all is available, but there's probably some master classes from him available. I mean, I know for sure going to UNO that, we have a lot of master classes that get archived, and if you dig around the internet, you can find a lot of resources as far as master classes are concerned. But with Roshu, another great thing is that you may not know this. I think I actually didn't know about this till I've been playing Roshu for quite a while. That there's a piano accompaniment to all of them, and all of those are on YouTube. So you can find just the piano accompaniment to the Roshu you're playing and play along with it. There's probably a ton of stuff on YouTube, and I could have done a lot more research on this and went a lot deeper, but I ended up thinking if you found this podcast, there's a good chance that you can find a lot of great sources on the internet. So, just dig around YouTube, see what you can find as far as that's concerned with whatever you're working on. I will say, just like a goodie I know is out there that you might not, is that there is Ralph Sauer doing the Remington Etude book, just going down through the whole thing, doing a warm up, and just listen. First of all, listening to him do it, he has incredible chops. And then also trying to play along with that. I know that was something I was doing for a little bit, especially his buzzing stuff. But kind of staying in the YouTube, internet, Facebook video kind of area, I just wanted to say that there is a lot of people right now that previously weren't putting stuff on the internet educationally that are now because they have some more free time. Harry Waters has been doing a daily warm-up. I know all those are getting put on YouTube, so you can warm up with Harry Waters, who's an incredible trombonist. I know Ron Wilkins, before he had to go to intensive care, was doing a pretty crazy bass trombone workout. You could probably dig around and find that. I know he put some of those on YouTube after he did them on Facebook Live. I don't know when he'll be back to those, obviously. He is getting better every day, though, which is great news. And there's just a ton of great YouTube master classes and educational stuff. I know Joe Lovano, the great saxophone player, has been doing improvisation master classes for free, on Facebook, and leaving them up. And I saw the other day that Chris Potter, not to get too deep into saxophone stuff, I know this is definitely a trombone pod, but Chris Potter, who never does educational stuff, did a thing where he talked about how he approached jazz standards with Bob Reynolds, and so there's just a lot of that going on. And I don't know what have you found as far as that, Ben?
So, being a music teacher, I am signed up to many mailing lists between Arkansas School Band and Orchestra Association, Arkansas Choir Directors Association, Arkansas Bandmasters. And through these, I've been noticing there's a lot of master classes going on like this, just like you were saying, Cody. One place that people might not think to check for some of these master classes is actually check the websites of your local music stores, or maybe not even your local music stores. Just look around at music stores that might maybe that ones that interest you. So around here in our area, we have two major music stores. We have Amro Music and Palin Music Company, and both of them are actually hosting master classes. And what that means is they pay usually college professors or people like that to actually put on master classes for different instruments or just band directors in general. But these are open to the public completely. And that's these music stores' way of staying relevant, but also giving back to the community. So that's one place that you might not think about looking, but that you actually can find some really good content sometimes. A lot of times these are live, so they might not be recorded. So really check there to see if you can check different music stores to see if you can hit it at the time that these master classes are, because sometimes they're even interactive. Um, Another place that I would be sure to check out is band. So every year, at least in Arkansas, but I know this is the case for Louisiana, Texas, and surrounding states. Over the summer, teachers have to go to professional development. Well, this year with COVID-19, professional developments are all pushed into professional development classes are all pushed into the virtual world. Well, that is great for outsiders from the industry because Arkansas Bandmasters Association, which normally has clinics from some great people from all over the world. Last year, Chris Berg, who leads the Metro. Cody, could you pronounce that for me? Is it
It's the
Metro?
Metropolitan Orchestra, yeah.
Yeah, Metropolitan Orchestra down in Dallas. Anyways, Chris Berg, he put on master classes there last year. I haven't checked the lineup this year for ABA, but they've actually lowered the cost of attendance, even though it's virtual, to $25, and that's open to anyone. So that is a wonderful opportunity to see some great master classes that wouldn't otherwise be available to you through sources like YouTube and things like that. It's like I said, throughout all this, it's definitely worth paying for the people who are putting out good content. I cannot stress that enough, that musicians have to eat too. Cody, I'm sure you have some firsthand experience on that.
Yeah, I've definitely, speaking as someone who had gigs, I definitely don't now. And they're gone. I mean, there's nowhere to play. I mean, a lot of people are trying to teach, which is why this is a great time to reach out. I'll even say that one of the things that on my graduate comps, one of my papers was about the relationship between jazz musicians and their listeners. So I sought out some jazz musicians, and I got John Faddis, who teaches at SUNY, who's a phenomenal trumpet player, like a once-in-a-generation talent. I got Joe Lovano, which was amazing. I got Nick Finzer, who, if you're not hip to, is an incredible trombone player. He's up and coming, and just got a job at North Texas. And I was able to get Conrad Herwig, who is one of my favorite trombone players of all time, for sure. I know that Ben can attest to that. I just, but it was, a phenomenal experience. And one of the reasons I was able to get a hold of these guys is because, just like me, except for their stuff's a lot better, their schedules have opened up a lot. I know Lovano was about to tour Europe. He just released a Roma album. I think it's called Roma Trio or something like that. And that got canceled. Herwig teaches at Rutgers, so that went online. And then whatever playing he was doing in New York is gone. Finzer is obviously lost his gigs. So, yeah, musicians could definitely use your help right now. I just, I think if you're going to support something right now, think about like the actual effect of your money. I just, if someone is alive for sure and there's an album that you kind of like and they're trying to make it, there's never been a better time than now to grab that. And I'll also say that, like I said, everyone is looking for lesson students, myself included even. Not that I'll be anywhere near as good as the people I'm about to list, but that, that's like a major source of income. So if you're thinking about getting lessons, there's never been a better time for anyone. I think there's probably a lot of your heroes that you probably thought would never have time to do it, or you'd never have the chance to do it, that you'd be surprised. And if you don't want to do a one-on-one thing and possibly even pay a lot of money, there's people have virtual studios, which is a relatively new thing. I know Nick Finzer has one. He has a bunch of different courses, and then you get some direct feedback from him and some talking. And Joe Alessi has one. I haven't used Alessi's or Finzer's. I know a little bit more about Nick's. I'm sure Alessi's is great, man. I mean, he just, the guy needs no introduction. So there's a lot of these studios out there that you can sign up for and be a part of this community and have a lot of resources. So as far as, getting lessons and getting better, it really sucks that we can't do in-person lessons. I think that those are extremely valuable. I think that personally, I feel like Skype lessons will never replace them at all. But, since you can't, the next best thing would be to get, possible direction from Joe Alessi. I'm sure it won't hurt. Zoltan Kiss just started giving online lessons. Zoltan Kiss doesn't give online lessons. This guy is like a big time performer in Europe, and he makes a lot of money. He just doesn't even need to. He's very focused on performing. But if you want to get lessons from Zoltan Kiss right now, that information is out there. He's extending that olive branch. So there's a lot of opportunities like that. I'm not saying they'll work. I'm definitely not saying to berate, somebody's email or however, and try and, because these people still are trying to focus on themselves. They're also trying to survive quarantine. But, it's maybe not, the worst thing to see, hey, what do you charge? And this is where I'm at. Do you think you could help me? I just think that, there's never been a better time for online lessons. And I think a lot of people have a lot more availability than they did before.
Yeah, I definitely have been seeing that. There was a time where a lot of DC's top musicians for the Army Field Band, the Marine Band, there was a time, I don't know if this is still going on, but for high school students, they were actually offering free lessons. I believe part of that is the fact that they weren't putting on taxpayer-funded concerts and felt the need to put on taxpayer-funded lessons, which I thought was a great program. I didn't have any students who were signing up for that, mostly because it did require internet. But I did like to see, though, that musicians were stepping up, and I like to think that some of the people in those bands happily did it. But who knows? Maybe the person in charge just said, "Hey guys, you need to do this since we're not putting on concerts." Either way, though, it's showing that even with something like this, we're finding ways around not being together, and I just thought that was really neat. So I guess high schoolers might want to check out that program. With school being over, that program more than likely is ended, but I'm sure will probably resume come the fall if this is still going on.
Yeah, man. Well, I think that's kind of like everything we've got. I just wanted to leave on the remark that man, just take care of yourself. I know that these are some crazy times for myself, crazy times for Ben. This podcast hopefully just distracts you from the craziness, and I hope that you're able to figure out what you need to get done and figure out how to keep going, because that's what it's all about right now. And if that's practicing a lot of trombone, great. That's what it is for me too. And so I hope that, I hope that's a happy place for you.
Well, I think you made a good point. Yeah, I guess my closing remarks will be very similar. Whether it's practicing trombone or not, I highly suggest everybody do something. Find something and do it, so you stay in that habit. If you stay in a habit of just getting up, doing a little bit of work around the house, maybe practicing trombone, something like that, that habit can easily be converted to playing trombone or to doing something else productive, and it'll help you to not get into a funk. I'm sure plenty of us, including myself, sometimes would get into a funk during this quarantine. And I believe I finished Netflix. I don't know if you guys have seen that series, but it is something else.
Yeah. Well, as always, thank you guys for listening, and happy practicing.
Hey, hold on.
Oh, what you got?
Cody, do you have an album recommendation?
I almost forgot, man. I'm so glad you threw that in there. I do have an album recommendation. One of my favorites this week. The album is Trombone Heaven. It's recorded live in Vancouver. with Frank Rosolino and Carl Fontana. To my knowledge, it's the second time, or I'm sorry, the second to last time he was ever recorded. There's a very obscure recording of him in Denmark after that, and the album, the last recording, was I think actually recorded before that. Uh, but it's just Carl and Frank at the top of their game, playing with a local Canadian band. I do have their names here. All right. The name of the piano player was Elmer Gill. The bassist was Torben Oxball, and the drummer is George Usan. And I don't want to underplay the rhythm section. I do want to point out that I'm really into digging into albums and knowing everyone on them, and then connecting albums through these different players. But the guys on this album were just happened to be like the house band. They were just local people in the area who played at the festival that day. The most impressive thing about this album is just Carl and Frank playing very long. I will say that these like 16-minute tracks at times, just incredible soloing and incredible ideas over a number of compositions where they really get a stretch out. I couldn't recommend it more. Love this album. And you got anything else, Ben?
Yeah, so that album, in my opinion, it's probably one of the best. Has some of the best examples of Carl Fontana's playing. You really won't find a ton of Carl Fontana just with albums with just Carl Fontana. So it's in my opinion, this is a great one of the great examples of Carl Fontana's playing. I'm a big Carl fan, and also I mean him and Frank just unreal. You mentioned about it being some of the tracks being 16 minutes. For those wondering, it is on Apple Music first of all, and Spotify. Every recommendation Cody gives will normally be on Spotify. He's a Spotify guy, and it has 6 songs in it, and it's an hour and 20 minutes long. So we have 6 tracks at an hour 20 minutes. So that ought to give you plenty of trombone music to listen to.
All right. Well, I go check it out. Happy listening and happy shedding. Tuning off for real this time.